We have a great card coming up this weekend with UFC 287. Here's my prediction video starting with the prelim. We have Gerald Meerschaert versus Joe Pyfer. They'll be fighting in a middleweight bout. Gerald has bounced back well after getting KO'd by Hamza in the first round, with winning 3 out of his last 4 by submission. Pyfer, on the other hand, will be returning after knocking out his opponent in September in the first round. Gerald does have a 2.5 reach advantage despite being a shorter man. However, Joe has the knockout power and the heavy hands. Joe has yet to face an opponent like Gerald caliber, and Gerald is known for being an opportunistic finisher who can survive until his opponents slow down and leave openings. Pyfer will need to fight smart, avoid getting caught up in his own hype, and remember to use his takedowns if Gerald starts building up any momentum. If he stays composed and doesn't get pulled into a pace he cannot sustain and clips Gerald inside the first 5 minutes, Pyfer could emerge victorious. So I got Joe winning by first round knockout. Sherman will be fighting Karl Williiams. Sherman scored his first UFC win in 2017. However, he has lost 5 of his last 6, claiming only performance of the night for his finish over Gerald. Williams, who won an upset decision over Jimmy Larson on the Contender Series, will replace Chris Barnett on a week's notice for his second fight in less than 1 month. Sherman has struggled against persistent wrestlers, and Williams' wrestling abilities and fast hands could present a challenge for him. As a result of that, I have Williams winning by unanimous decision. Next, we have Michelle Waterson versus Luana Pinero in a women's strawweight bout. Waterson Gomez put herself on the brink of contender status with 3 straight upset wins, but since has lost 4 of her last 5 fights. Luana, on the other hand, capped off a 6-fight winning streak by knocking out Stephanie on the Contender Series. Although Luana hasn't fought in over 16 months, she is younger, bigger, and the heavier hitter. Luana is also the superior takedown artist, and her judo skills could prevent Waterson Gomez from initiating any ground exchange. Unless Waterson Gomez can pull Luana into a pure striking match and edge it on volume striking, Luana's power and takedowns are sufficiently superior than her, so I would have to go with Luana for the win by unanimous decision. Next, we have Kevin Gastelum, who will be making his long-awaited return to the octagon to face Chris Curtis in a middleweight bout. Kevin has gone 1-5 in his last 6 appearances. Curtis has had his 8-fight winning streak snapped by Jack Hermanson, but got back on track with a knockout over Hakeem Buckley. Curtis is one of the few fighters in the division who can match Gastelum's striking ability and his knockout power. Calvin does tend to take a lot of body shots, and Chris does have some powerful body shots, so I'm going to have to pick Curtis winning by unanimous decision. Opening the main card, we have a bantamweight bout with the youngest UFC fighter on the roster in Raul Rosa Jr. He will be facing Christian Rodriguez, who is also fairly new to the UFC with a 2-1 record, his loss being to Jonathan Pierce. It's crazy that Raul already is on the main card after just 1 fight in the UFC. It just goes to show you that the UFC really wants to make a name for this kid and trying to give him as much spotlight as they can. I think Raul will go for the kill as soon as the bell rings and try to take him down and get a submission in the first round, so the hype around him will continue to grow even higher. So give me Raul by first round submission. Next match, we have a welterweight bout with Kevin Holland fighting Santiago Ponzinibio. This for sure will be a banger. The power these 2 men possess and will need, and the willingness to strike, there's nothing anybody can tell me to convince me that this fight will go the distance. However, Santiago is a bit older and hasn't quite been the same since taking them 3 years off, so I could say Kevin Holland could be catching him at a good time. But also, Kevin Holland has lost 4 out of his last 5 fights. In his most recent fight, his corner had to end the match after the 4th round because Stephen Thompson was just starting to land on him at will towards the end of that round, and Kevin was taking massive damage. So I don't think there will be any takedown attempts in this matchup unless one of them gets hurt bad. So it should remain standing. This is a tough one to predict, but I have to go with Kevin Holland by KO in the 2nd round. Next, we have Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez in the bantamweight division. These 2 are very good strikers, with Rob Font having one of the best jabs in the UFC, and Adrian finishing 4 out of his 5 opponents in the UFC by either TKO or knockout. It must be stated that Rob Font has taken a lot of damage in his last 2 fights, one against Otto where he got his left orbital and nasal fractured, and the last against Marlon Vera where his face was unrecognizable. The damage taken in those fights could potentially put his career in a downward spiral, especially since he is 35. I can see him landing some good jabs early and giving Adrian trouble, but once that second round comes and he makes some adjustments, I think he might just take out Font and win by TKO or knockout. I just can't see how Font can come off those two back-to-back beatings and go on some type of winning streak. So give me Adrian Yanez by third round TKO. Now we have my favorite matchup of the night, which is the welterweight bout between Jorge Masvidal and Gilbert Burns. I would imagine the winner of this matchup will be getting the next title shot. So there is a lot on the line for these two. Plus, they are both above the age of 35, so not sure how much more they will keep fighting, especially Jorge being 38 and hasn't won a fight in like 4 years. I know a lot of people believe that Burns has the grappling advantage and could take down Jorge, but I don't think it would be that easy for him because he is not as good of a wrestler as Kobe and Usman. So even if he does get Jorge to the ground, I can see Jorge just getting right back up. And plus, Jorge has underrated jiu-jitsu. So if Gilbert does get him to the ground or happens to get his back, I can't see Gilbert getting a sub on him. Now, if the fight is going to be standing up, that begs the question, will Burns' chin be able to take the power of Jorge? Because in the past, we have seen him get dropped by Dan Hooker, Usman, and even Hamza. And we've seen that even after being drained by Kobe with his consistent pressure, Jorge was able to drop him in the fourth. And I personally don't believe that Burns will be able to take a punch like that, but you never know. Now, my brain is going with Gilbert Burns to win by decision, but my heart wants to pick Jorge to win because he is one of my favorite fighters. So I might have to go in that direction and pick Jorge by third round TKO. I know most people won't pick that, but I just got a feeling that he is going to win, but it is going to be awkward if Kobe happens to beat Leon for the belt, and they will be trying to set up a matchup between those two after Jorge allegedly attacked him after their first match. Now we have the main event of the night, in which Alex Perez will be defending his middleweight championship belt against Israel Adesanya. Man, this just is a sad story for Izzy. Losing to Alex twice in kickboxing, he then moves on to the UFC and makes a name and legacy for himself, with fans having him a top 3 middleweight of all time, and some even having him at number 1. All that just to have Alex come to your turf where you were supposed to have the advantage and beat you again for the 3rd time and takes your belt. Now, in their first matchup, Izzy was able to rock Perez at the end of the first round, but after that, Alex bounced back greatly, being able to take Izzy down and outstrike him. Plus, Alex checks Izzy's leg kicks very well, and if Alex chooses to be the aggressive and try to go for the kill like he did in the 5th round, I don't see how Izzy can overcome him. Now, in an interview, Israel did slip up and say that he might try to take his back, which infers that he might have a grappling heavy approach in this matchup, but I don't think that's a good idea because Alex has been training with Glover and his takedown defense will be a lot better than last time. I predict that Alex Perez will defend his belt and finish Israel in the 3rd round by TKO. I just got a feeling that Alex will stalk Izzy the whole fight, and Izzy won't be able to keep distance and range with that leg kick, and that will cause him to have to stay within range of Alex, and that will lead to him getting a TKO against the cage again. I hope you guys enjoyed my prediction video, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.